Matthew, you have a lot of experience in Afghanistan. Um, I'd love to have an episode with you to do with Afghanistan as well, because there's actually a lot going on in Afghanistan at the moment. I did my master's as a mature student in 2010, and my dissertation was on the resilience of the Taliban from
Oh,
2001 to 2010. Um, so,
yeah,
and
I'd love to talk to you about that. If you, and I'd love to read that if you could send it to me. I'd
oh
love
yeah,
to read that.
definitely, yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Because at the moment, there's so much going on in that area, which is kind of because there's so much other things happening in Ukraine and Middle East, is kind of going unnoticed.
Right.
But firstly, for the first time now, the Taliban government in Afghanistan and Pakistan have been kind of there's been border clashes between them both, and at the same time, there's some talk of Pakistan taking over the Wakhan corridor that kind of links to China, so
Hmm.
that they have direct access then to Turkmenistan and all of those areas. So, and all of that is kind of TTP is kind of involved in all of this,
Huh.
and also we have obviously influence of ISIS there as well.
Right.
And I do think there is a lot of that legacy of divide and conquer, which also reminds me. So if we look at recent history, I can't remember any time when, whether it was America or before that, European powers, the British Empire, the French, any of these have brought two kind of um, conflicting nations together. Similarly to what China has done, for example, with bringing Iran and Saudi Arabia together,
Right.
and they were trying to bring Turkey and Syria together, and that kind of didn't pan out just quite right. But you don't have any of those examples because it was a clear kind of a policy, starting maybe from the British times, that divide and conquer, and there's a legacy now in all of these areas with the colonial powers existed previously, that tribes, nations, they're still struggling to kind of come to terms with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I could give you a bunch of examples of the United States foreign policy pushing countries together as a consequence of America's action, right? So not as a plan, not as a result of good intentions or because but because of these countries trying to find a way to get away from the dangers of the American empire. And the Trump administration is only going to exacerbate that. Certainly, this threat of sanctioning everyone, that's just going to cause nations to try and protect themselves. And by protecting themselves, they're going to align with others.
Yes.
But certainly, I think that the most striking example of this is the relationship between Iran and Russia. Just last week, they signed this supposedly massive strategic partnership that's going to last for 20 years. No one really knows what's in it, but supposedly it's very robust and covers all types of covers trade and energy and transportation, as well as security and defense and intelligence and things like that. So, I mean, you have this reality that Moscow and Tehran are now allies, and that's pretty ahistorical.
Yeah.
If you had gone back, decades ago and said this was going to be the case, people be like, you don't know your history. There's no way Russia and
Yes.
Iran are going to be friends. I mean, but because of our policies, that's the way it is. You could say the same with Russia and China, right? The relationship between Russia and China is very strong and very growing. And, one of the arguments of some of those in the Trump administration is that we should have better relations with Russia to peel Russia away from China. That's, very Machiavellian, Zygmunt Brzezinski, Henry Kissinger type machination that I don't think the United States has the competency to do.
Yeah.
But if we were to act in a more cooperative and reasonable manner with other nations, that is something that could occur. But certainly what you're seeing is more countries heading into institutions like the BRICS because, one, it provides a better path forward for them. They are more assured in the certainty of the rules, the regulations of the BRICS institution than they are of our international institutions, because essentially the United States has destroyed that credibility. There is no certainty in the post-World War II process anymore. The United States has done away with that. I was reading, a thing the other day just about this, where why nations are more inclined to align with China than the U.S. Because you say what you will about the Chinese government and human rights violations and all that, but at least in our relations with China, we are certain where they stand and what will occur, and they're not threatening us the way the Americans do. Last year or 2 years ago, I read a comment from I can't remember which country, but from an African official, one of the countries there, I can't remember. But, essentially he said, look, when we deal with the Chinese, we end up getting ports and railroads, right? When we deal with the Americans, we end up getting commandos and drones and lectures. And so the United States has put itself in this position where it is ushering its own demise. And there was a clip that was a viral clip of Donald Trump from his first night in office 2 days ago, where he's asked a question about BRICS, and somehow he believes that Spain is in BRICS. And he goes on, and then he questions the reporter along the lines of, "You don't know about this, do you? But yeah, you should go read about what BRICS is about." And here's a guy is saying that Spain is a member of BRICS. This ignoramus who's sitting in the Oval Office right now, who's threatening to throw tariffs at everybody. And if anyone joins BRICS, we're going to give them 100% tariff. That's what he says. That's only going to further push nations to a lot, right? I mean, but this is the reality of empire. I'm sure if we went and dissected the various empires as they decline, they make moves, they carry out policies, they do things that further exasperate their decline. There's a saying, I'm not sure if folks say it outside the U.S., but that a dying mule kicks hardest. And that's what's so very dangerous, is that you have this American empire that's in decline, that is thrashing about, that took its role after the collapse of the Soviet Union, where it became the single empire, where it became the world's hegemon. And rather than acting reasonably and in a manner that would not just benefit itself, benefit others, thereby guaranteeing its place as, the top of the world order, it chose to abuse that position. And of course, most especially act as a raving homicidal giant, stomping throughout any nation that it felt opposed them. And that now is on the economic order as well, as we've seen, particularly since the Obama administration, this economic warfare throughout the world, where now, what's the number? Over a quarter of the world's people, maybe more, are under U.S. sanctions, sanctions that don't work, but make things difficult for countries. And again, that just pushes nations to band together to find institutions that are reasonable and reliable and provide some degree of certainty as well as protection. And so so it is. You see that just both on individual levels, but on national levels, how the very actions of the U.S. empire push people and nations to be opposed to it.
Exactly. Hey there. I hope you're enjoying this episode. Let me just take a moment to introduce our sponsors for today. This episode is kindly being sponsored by the Worldwide Listings Company Limited, or WLC for short. WLC is a complete A to Z Amazon account management service. So if you're looking to start an e-commerce business, or you already have a business that you want to take to the next level, then get in touch and WLC will be able to help. Just for transparency purposes, let me also mention that WLC is a company that I personally created and am a director of. So when you get in touch with WLC, you will be speaking with directly myself or my team, and we very much look forward to speaking with you to see how we can serve your needs. Thank you. And with that said, let's get back to the episode.